Today we're diving into a concept that could really change how we deal with information. It's a tool called OmniCurate, and the core idea is that it acts as your second brain.
So let's get things off with a problem that I bet feels familiar to just about everyone. We are swimming in this endless ocean of content, right? But turning all that stuff into actual usable knowledge, well, that's the real challenge.
I mean, really, just take a second and think about it. For me, it's gotta be dozens of hours. Podcasts on the commute, videos during lunch, articles before bed. It's just a non-stop fire hose of information.
And here's the real kicker, isn't it? How much of that can you actually remember? That brilliant point from a podcast you heard on Monday? Poof, it's gone by Wednesday. And there's no way you can connect it to that article you just skimmed. It's super frustrating.
And that really gets to the heart of the matter. We are literally drowning in information, but at the same time, we're starving for wisdom. It's this kind of information amnesia, right? We put in all the hours learning, but the actual insights just seem to evaporate. We've become fantastic consumers, but not so great synthesizers.
So what's the fix? Well, this is where OmniCurate comes into the picture, and it's proposing something really different. Think of it less like another app for saving links and more like a partner that doesn't just store what you consume, but actually understands it.
Okay, that's a bit of a mouthful, so let's break it down. Proactive means it's working in the background for you. Cross-modal just means it handles everything. Video, audio, text, you name it. But the most important part here, knowledge graph. Seriously, don't think of this as a digital filing cabinet. It's more like a living, breathing map of all the ideas inside your media, and, crucially, how they all link together.
Okay, that all sounds great in theory, but what does it actually look like in practice? Let's walk through a scenario. Let's imagine you're a researcher, and you've got a pretty hefty topic to tackle.
Your goal is to write a really insightful article on the ethics of AI development. And you've done the work, right? You've watched the documentaries, listened to the interviews, read the papers. It's all in your head. Somewhere, the real challenge is pulling it all together. Now, instead of just typing AI ethics into a search bar, look at the kind of question you can ask. Find all evidence of ethical failures in AI development that are framed by a geopolitical lens. Whoa, that is not a keyword search. That is a conceptual search. You're asking about the relationship between these big, complex ideas.
And this is just a brilliant illustration of how OmniCurate actually thinks about that question. It's not looking for words on a page. It's connecting nodes. It sees ethical failures as a concept, geopolitical lens as another concept, and it actually understands the relationship between them. You get to visually build a query based on meaning, not just text. And boom, look at the output. It's instant, and it is incredibly powerful. This isn't a list of 100 videos you have to rewatch. Nope, it's a curated dossier. It hands you the 12 most relevant, time-stamped clips, quotes, and summaries from across your entire library that directly answer that really complex question. That's a total game changer.
So at this point, you're probably asking, okay, how on earth does it do that? It really does feel like magic. But it's not. It's all built on a very logical, very powerful architecture. So let's pull back the curtain and see how the trick is done.
It really all boils down to 3 key steps. First, there's ingestion. The system just takes in and transcribes all the media you authorize. Simple enough. Then comes the real magic, processing. This is where it identifies all the key concepts and starts mapping out how they're all connected to each other. And finally, output. It takes all that messy, complex data and synthesizes it into those clean, useful insights we just saw.
So let's dive a little deeper into that processing core, because this is really the engine room. It uses contextual semantic search, which just means it's looking for intent and meaning, not just keywords. It extracts every important person, place, and idea. But here's the absolute most critical part. It builds your personal knowledge graph. This isn't some generic map of the world's information. No, this is a dynamic map of your brain, your understanding. It's a living record of your unique intellectual journey.
All right, now that we have a sense of the how, let's get to the fun part. What can you actually do with this thing? The system gives you 3 distinct modes, and honestly, calling them features doesn't do them justice. They're more like new superpowers for your brain.
This is the big shift right here. The old way is keyword search. You're just finding documents that happen to contain certain words. The new way with OmniCurate is a knowledge search. You're finding the actual connections between ideas. You stop asking, where did I read that? And you start asking, how does this idea conflict with that one? It's a completely different level of thinking.
So your new toolkit is pretty incredible. You've got discovery mode, where you can ask these big connect-the-dots questions and find connections you never would have seen before. Then there's annotation mode, which is so cool. You can pin key moments, of course, but you can also add layers of context and even apply a role-play lens. Imagine telling it, analyze this from the perspective of a skeptic. Wow. And finally, synthesis mode, where it basically does the heavy lifting of outlining for you, generating those dossiers and even visual argument maps.
Of course, whenever you talk about a tool this powerful, you absolutely have to talk about the principles behind it. You know, with great power comes great responsibility, and OmniCurate seems to be built with that in mind, with some really strong mandatory rules to keep it user-focused and safe.
And these rules are apparently non-negotiable. First, privacy first. All of this processing happens on your local machine or in your own secure environment. Your data is yours, period. Second, total transparency. Every single insight it gives you can be traced right back to the original source, down to the exact timestamp. No black boxes. And maybe the coolest one, bias mitigation. The system will actually give you a heads up if it notices your sources are getting a little one-sided. It helps keep you honest, which is just amazing.
So, this all leads to a pretty big final thought. A tool like this isn't really just about finding information faster, it's about thinking better. It's about seeing the entire web of your own knowledge, all laid out. So the real question I want to leave you with is this. If you had a perfect map of everything you've ever learned, showing every hidden connection and every gap, what would you build with it? What new ideas, what creations would you bring into the world?